Hey guys, this is another update to my K-On! Yu-Gi-Oh cards. If you haven't seen the previous videos showing where they began and the changes I've made over time, links will be down below. Short intro so we can get to the meat of the video. So I've been working on these for a long time and will undoubtedly keep doing so. Of the several deck types, aggro, control, combo, ramp, midrange, and hybrid, these cards fall more into combo, which I know a lot of people aren't fans of since combo decks can result in plays taking either 5 minutes or 5 years. I've also kept the counter mechanic, although I have considered changing that to the differently named effects that 6 Samurai use. I'm more than welcoming to constructive criticism, so if there are any suggestions to improve these, please let me know. Going into the cards, we'll start with the monsters. Now the majority of the main deck K-Ons, K-On! Is the archetype name I gave them, share 1 to 2 effects, a counter effect and or a revival effect. For the counter effect, they include Alsase, June, Mio, Ritsu, Sumiri, Mugi, Ui, Yui, and Sawako. How it works is 2 of the spell cards accumulate music counters if 1 or more K-Ons is summoned. I used some elements of 6 Sense for this because I am not original. And to use their individual effects, you have to remove a music counter from your field, except for Sawako, who requires you to remove 2. As for their effects, Alsase can summon a cat token once per turn, June, who is a tuner, can send a K-On! Monster from your deck to the graveyard, Mio can buff the attack and defense of all K-On! Monsters you control by 500 until the end phase, Ritsu, who is a tuner, can attack twice, Sumiri lets you draw a card then discard a card, Mugi can pop an opponent's face-up monster but cannot attack if the effect is used, Ui boosts your life points by 500 for each K-On! Monster you control, and Yui gives you an additional normal summon of a K-On! Monster. As for Sawako, she can special summon 2 K-On! Monsters, 1 from your hand and 1 from your deck, into defense, but they cannot attack and their effects are negated. She can also be special summoned from your hand if you control at least 2 face-up K-On! Monsters, and she gives all K-On! Monsters you control battle destruction immunity. A bit of variation with the effects, but I'm happy with them. For the revival effect, we just swap Sawako for Nodoka. How it works is if you have one of the K-Ons in the graveyard, let's say Mio, and you do not currently control another copy on the field, you can revive it, but it gets banished when it leaves the field. This might seem strange since it basically makes them zombies, but recoverability is pretty important. If you can't recover from a board wipe, you're basically screwed. So that's why I decided to give them this effect. If you think it's better to change it to something else, please tell me in the comments. In the case of Nodoka's effect, if she's summoned, no missing the timing here, you can search a level 4 or lower K-On! Except herself, and if you do, you can normal summon a K-On! She's basically the starter. If you can get to Nodoka, you're good. Now granted, a well-placed Ash will roadblock you if summoning Nodoka is all you can do, but from the test hands I've done with the deck I've built, using Dueling Book, consistency is pretty good. For the last 3 main deck monsters, we have Megumi, Nao, and Tonchan. Megumi can be special summoned from your hand by revealing a K-On! And lets you tribute a K-On! You control to special summon a differently named level 4 or lower K-On! From your deck, both effects being hard once per turns. So if you need a K-On! For a particular situation, or have one that's had its effects negated, you can swap them out. Nao is a tuner who can revive a level 4 or lower K-On! From the graveyard when she's normal summoned, but it's destroyed during the end phase. So if nothing else is used, she provides an instant level 6 or lower Synchro, a rank 2, or a link 2. And Tonchan is a tuner who can be special summoned from the graveyard by matching the level of a K-On! You control. I know Megumi is a very minor character, but I wanted to include as many as possible. So if I had to remove her, I don't think it would have much negative effect. Nao does not have the counter effect since, while she does synthesize music, she does not play an instrument, and anyone who's read the manga knows why. And Tonchan is here since I know he does have a fan base, which is completely fine. I like turtles myself. For the extra deck, we have 4 cards. First is Death Devil Sawako Yamanaka. Now obviously, if these were to be real cards, Konami would never allow death in the name. I decided to use Sawako's Death Devil persona as separate cards, as stated in a previous video. This one has her as a Quasar basically. Chaos Max Protection, Omni Negate, and revives up to a level 12's worth of Chaos if she's destroyed and sent to the graveyard. She's semi-generic, requiring a Chaos tuner specifically. If you feel she should be locked to the archetype, feel free to let me know. Next is another Sawako card, Heavy Metal Sawako Yamanaka, this time an Xyz. She requires 3 level 4 Chaos, which may seem a lot, but in this deck I don't think it's too tall in order. Her effect lets you make one of your Chaos into a Catastor. Not anything overwhelming, but good if you decide to focus more on beatdown. Third is a fusion monster, Death Devil Norimi Kawaguchi. I decided to add Norimi to the archetype since, of the members of Death Devil, she is the most prominent after Sawako and basically had a whole episode of screen time. I used Secret 6 Samurai Rihan as a template for this one and basically Chaosified her. She's also a negation, though different to Synchro Sawako, and if she's destroyed, you can bring out additional Chaos from the deck if you have enough resources. Finally is Chaos Bust, a link to Earth Rock with 1200 attack and arrows pointing down and bottom right. Not that it matters anymore. I know links are no longer mandatory, but I still wanted to include one, and I decided to use the stone bust outside the school, as odd as that might seem. Although, is it the founder of Sakura Gakko or a principal? I actually have no idea. If it's link summoned, it can activate the archetypal field spell straight from the deck, it gives targeting protection, and it can banish itself from the graveyard as a mini Pot of Avarice for back row. Its original second effect shuffled the Chaos back into the deck if they left the field again after reviving themselves, but I decided that was too good an effect since that allows borderline endless loops which no one likes, so I toned it down to targeting protection. Moving to the spells, we'll go through them quick if they're very simple. First is Honey Sweet Tea Time. It's an archetypal Pot of Avarice. The only thing to note is that it's not a Chaos card, meaning it's not easily searchable or recoverable. I may add the clause of it always being treated as a Chaos card, but no solid decision yet. Next is Chaos Cake. As I said in the last video, it's not Chaos without the cake. This card is similar to Pot of Duality, except it has no real restrictions besides a heart once per turn, and it excavates 5 cards because the cake has 5 strawberries. Next is Chaos Cat Ears. It's also not Chaos without the cat ears, and since they are worn, this is obviously an equip spell. It lets the level 4 and lower Chaos attack directly if it's equipped, and it can transfer to another Chaos if it would be sent to the graveyard while equipped, like they're passing it off to each other. Next is Chaos Clubroom and Chaos Logo. These are shown together since they are both how you accumulate music counters. Clubroom also lets you search back row Malefic World style in addition to giving effects destruction immunity, and Logo lets you summon from the deck when you have enough counters for the Chaos you want. I did initially not have a limit on them, but felt that would be too abusable, as anyone facing 6 Samurai could attest, so they can each only hold 5 and 6 counters respectively. Next is Chaos Dive. This is a destiny draw. Nothing else to really say beyond that. Next is Chaos High School. When it's activated, you can search or recover Clubroom, and it lets you use the effects of Chaos on your field and in your graveyard up to twice per turn. The school gives them a home field advantage, so to speak. Like they study, and that lets them use their effects again, even though studying is the last thing on Yui's and Ritsu's minds, and Ton-chan can't study because he's a turtle. Next is Chaos Memories. You can permanently buff a Chaos you control by using another in the graveyard. This is basically a combat trick, though as a quick play spell, it's very flexible. Next is Chaos Reminiscence, an archetypal DDR. There is quite a bit of banishing in this archetype, so having a way to bring back banished Chaos is a no-brainer. I don't yet have a Chaos equivalent of Dimension Fusion or Return from the Different Dimension, so if there are any suggestions in the audience, please put them forward. Next is Chaos Revive. It's a monster reborn that can also recycle banished Chaos. Again, there is a lot of banishing, so having a way to get them back is very important. Only the second effect is once per turn. Next is Chaos Roll Call. It's an equal. I originally had it only search low-level Chaos similar to Rota, but that makes Sawako and Megumi basically unsearchable, so I removed that clause. Next is Chaos Song. It's more draw power, but only once per turn. It's not too difficult to fill the board, so it has that limit to prevent drawing 10 to 15 cards at once if you were to get multiple copies in your hand. Next is Kaon's Spirit. It's a soul charge essentially, but it only revives low-level Kaons, it shuffles any that remain during your end phase into the deck, and it locks any additional special summons to Kaons only, so no extra deck shenanigans that a lot of people hate. Next is Moe Moe Kaon. You could consider this a Mio signature attack card if you really wanted to, mostly because you need her on the field to use it. It's not a complete board wipe since those generally have restrictions of some kind, but it does have what could be considered the third best removal behind shuffling into the deck and banishing face down. Next is Raging Kaon. This buffs a low level Kaon and lets it multi-attack Asura Priest style, but it gets temporarily banished during the end phase, kinda like they get tired after raging out. Last of the spells is the 5 Kaons. If you have several low level Kaons in your hand, you can dump them onto the field, but if any remain at the end phase, they'll blow up and burn you, and you also lose your battle phase, which I think is a fair restriction for this kind of effect. So with this card, you can, as Rata once said, vomit onto boards harder than a surfer with motion sickness. As for the traps, there's not many to go through. First is Kaon Club Successors. This is another board wipe for the opponent, although you have to have Azusa, Ui, and June on the field. It can only activate during the main phase, and you lose the battle phase. Though if you use this at the right time as disruption, that last restriction is a non-event. I also decided to make it a hand trap if you have no back row, so you kinda have to play a bit smart with it if you do want to hand trap your opponent with it. Next is Kaon Concert. It's a solemn in the most basic sense. Get at least 2 differently named Kaons on the field, instant negate. Next is Kaon Strength. This one draws inspiration from the anime only card Blackwing, meaning you would only ever run multiples. It gives some protection from a direct attack, but its real strength is the graveyard effect. Get both in the graveyard, banish them, and scattershot your opponent. Now there is plenty of protection in the game and a lot of graveyard disruption, so it's not exactly a game ender, but it can be a big surprise for the opponents if they're not expecting it. Next is Kaon Switch. This one kind of imitates Megumi's second effect, letting you swap out the Kaons if needed, but it does require interaction from the opponent and is slow being a trap card, so you'll only really get one use out of it. It would likely be better if it was a quick effect that required no interaction, so please tell me which you think is better. Next is Kaon Twin Characters. This one's an Icarus attack, only its non-target shuffles cards into the deck, which is more effective and a bit more permanent than targeted destruction. And the final card is Shielding a Kaon. This lets you protect the Kaons from attacks by using the ones in the graveyard as shields, so to speak. Like one gets attacked and another appears from the graveyard as a spirit and blocks the attack. And those are all the cards up to now. I'm pretty happy with how they are, but I have by no means finished tweaking them. If any of you have suggestions for further improvements that keep them good but fair, please comment down below. And if you've designed any of your own custom cards, please share them. I'd like to see people's creativity. I have made a Kaon deck on Dueling Book and have been using solo modes to do test hands, so if you'd like to see the deck profile and watch me do test hands, even though basically every YouTuber uses physical cards for that, let me know. I'll likely do it anyway, but please tell me if that's something you're interested in. As always, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to come join me on Discord, consider backing me on Patreon, and remember to stay chilled.
Let's go!